I'm Justin K. Prim. Thank you guys so much for having me. If you guys haven't seen a Jambpeg before, I'll show you how it works. And I'll show you the Thai one and the French one. This is probably my favorite thing about the Thai industry is their weird story. So this is the Thai one, this is the French one. This is an old French one, it's wood. The newer ones are metal. You've got this row of holes, and in this one you can see the row of holes is kind of just carved out with a knife or something like that. This one's more machined. But basically the trick is, wherever you put the hole, the angle of the height of the Jambpeg is going to make your angle. So if you put it on a low hole, you're on a more flat angle, and if you're on a high hole, you're on a more steep angle. And then the secret is the plate. So in the Thai version, we've got this plastic ring that just goes onto the dop stick. And so when you put your dop into the hole, and when you're actually holding it the correct way, this thing presses against here, and then you just flip it, flip it, flip it, flip it, and each side is a facet. And then, it's got 8. So then when you want to go in between, you just twist it like those other ones. And it, again, really crude. I've cut one stone on this one with a teacher, and it was very hard. It was really, really challenging. And part of the reason why it's so challenging is because of that twisting that you have to do. There's no reference point, just your own experience. Like, imagine if you're cutting your 8 main facets on a round brilliant, and then you want to cut your star facets. Usually you'll go halfway between the mains. For them, these are the mains, right? These are the 8 mains on the index gear. So then when they want to go to the stars, they just twist it a tiny bit. But it's like, how much do you twist it? I don't know. That one's hard to use. This one is a little bit easier. This is the French one. And this one's really old and kind of gross looking, but it's still pretty functional. And here's the cool thing about this one. So it's the same thing. You've got 8 sides, but instead of being a 10-cent plastic ring, this thing costs like 400 euros. This is really expensive because it's very precisely made, but it's still a wooden dop stick. Inside of here is just a wooden dop stick, and then you've got this mechanical case, and this is like the secret weapon of the French cutters. So when they put this in there, they've got their 8 indexes, so they can go really fast, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against that plate, just like the Thais were doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They can do that really fast, but the cool thing is, where is it? That little tooth, there's a bunch of little teeth, and then there's a little, I don't even know what you call it, a little notch or whatever. And so when you push this thing down, you can twist it. So there's, let's say all of your 96 indexes are in there. You just have to, basically you're basing everything off 8. So if you know that your 2 break facets are, let's say, +3 and -3 off 96, then maybe you just move this thing 3 little notches over, and then you can go through and cut all of your break facets with the same 8-sided ring. So it's pretty clever. What the Thais have done is not very clever, but this original one works really, really well, and they can do all the designs without any guessing because they've got all the little teeth in there. So that one's pretty cool. So this is the head for this French machine. We've got 2 of them here because normally in France, the way that they're cutting, a lot of times people were cutting at home, and it was a lot of times a husband and wife affair. So you've got this big piece of furniture, right? Imagine, 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. It's a big piece of furniture. You need 2 people to lift it up. And so on one side, you've got, let's say your cutter who's in its hand crank. So they're hand cranking over here. They've got their Jambpeg over here. Maybe, at least in the video I saw, the wife was the cutter and the husband was the polisher. So she would cut the stone and she would do the whole thing, and then she would just hand this thing across the table, and the polishing station's on the other side. So they're facing each other all day, which I can't even imagine what that will do to your marriage. You're just sitting there all day cutting stones. And I'm sure if you guys are cutting stones, you know, there's those moments of frustration. It's the same thing here. You know, I've got my workstation over here. My wife's got her workstation over there. And every once in a while, I just hear a swear word. And I'm just like, what happened? And she's like, I cut an extra facet, or, you know, whatever, wrong number, whatever it is. And I just can't imagine, you know, sitting across from your spouse all day cutting stones. But the crudest Jambpeg of all. Theirs is, it's like the original one. All you have is the stick. There's no indexes at all. It's just the stick. So they don't have that mechanical case. They don't have the metal plate over here that lets you rest the stone on there and have some reference point. They just have all these holes that, again, are just notched in with probably a pocket knife. And, you know, they find the hole that gives them the angle that they're looking for. And then they cut a little bit, and then they pick it up. And then when they put it back down, you know, their muscle memory is so good that they know exactly how their hand should be. Because of course, if you turn your hand a little bit like that, or a little bit like that, you're on a different place, right? Your star is no longer in between the two mains. It's off center. So I tried this one time at a gem show. There was, in Germany, they had somebody set up, you know, letting people come and try. And I tried to do it, and it's so hard, you know, trying to put your hand back in the same spot. And I wasn't even cutting, I was just polishing. You know, the girl had already put all the facets on there, because that's the hard part. You know, polishing is much easier because you can kind of rotate them around a little bit and feel where the flat part is. But, you know, every time you pick it up to see if it's finished polishing and then you realize it's not, you have to put it back down in exactly the same way. And if your hand's twisted in any direction, suddenly you're rounding off the edges of your facet, or you're just cutting in a new facet. I would not want to cut that way. That one is really, really hard to do, but they're still doing it. So that's kind of impressive, you know, and for them, they really believe I don't know if this is just a German thing or if everyone feels like their technology is the best technology, but they are convinced that their technique is the best, because since there's no indexes and there's no angles, it's all you know, it's all in the skill of the hand of the cutter. And for them, they see it as like a master painter, right? Like if you can just take a paintbrush and paint an amazing portrait, you're a master painter. So for them, they just take their stick, which is really just a paintbrush, and they can create, you know, an amazing layout with no help. So for them, they're like, oh, we are the best cutters in the world because we can do it with just this stick. That muscle memory is not, you know, it's like being a gymnast or something. You know, you have to practice that for years before you can automatically just catch yourself on the bar or whatever you're trying to do. And same thing, you have to do that for years to get your hand to go back down in the same spot every time and not think about it. You know, it's just there. It's also kind of like the German one, but it's a different shape. This is French, but the English one's similar. And so they're also just using a wooden dopstick. And so they're doing everything with glue, with wax. So they'll wax to do the crown, and then they'll heat it up and they'll tilt the stone to 45 degrees in the wax by eye. And that's basically their table adapter, because this machine can't, you know, same as anybody, it can't go to 0. And they could freehand the table, sometimes they do, but if they want to use this thing to do the table, they'll tilt the stone 45 degrees. And again, this is muscle memory, you know, they've been doing this for 50 years now. So when they tilt it to 45 degrees, it's perfectly on. And then they can, you know, they can adjust this up and down a little bit to make sure the table's totally flat. And then they take it off, clean it with acetone, flip it over, and re-wax it and do the bottom side. Or, yeah, I think they do crown first, pavilion second. So, yeah, they're doing everything with wax. The French are also doing it that way. Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you. And we're going to come see you next year. So, thanks for having me. You guys stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye,
Justin.
Thank you.